In this tutorial, I'll be showing some basic tools that are useful for making concept art, making games art. If you're doing a 2D game, you might be making the graphics in Photoshop. So I'll be showing a couple of nice tricks I like to use, but then some nice tools that you can use, which will help you out. So first of all, white backgrounds. If you've got any like white in your character or whatever you're making, if you have white, it might just blend in with this background. So typically what I like to do is change this to a light blue, but if you have blues, then change it to a light red, that kind of thing, but do it to a contrasting colour. So by default, when you make a project and it's got a background, you'll have this background layer and it's got a lock. If we just double click this, then we can change it into an unlocked layer. So double click that, and then we could just delete it, make a new layer, fill it with whatever colour we want, or we can fill it with a paint bucket. So by default, I'm not sure why Photoshop does this, but the gradient tool is the default one. But if we hold left click on this, on the gradient tool, so on the left, midway down, you can see gradient tool. You hold left click, then you can select the paint bucket, and then that'll be there by default. So we can then change this colour to whatever we want. We can fill it. So on this bottom here, or in the top right, we can change the colour. So I'm just going to click this, it'll come up with this. I like to do it on the bottom left. And then, as I said, I usually do a lightish blue, and then I fill that, and then if I've got any white, then it stands out still. So an alternative, what we could do, if you've started drawing something, so if I do a new layer, and I just draw some squiggles, but I want to change this colour then, if we double click on the preview image for the layer, so not the layer because that will rename it, the layer title, but the preview image, so in between the eye and the text, double click that and it will bring up the layer styles. Then what we can do is, one of the useful ones is colour overlay, and we can then overlay that with whatever colour we want. And we can see it in live, so I drop it there and I can see the colour changing. So layer styles, I'll cover these in a little bit more detail, but that's a useful thing that we can do. So there are options in a variety of ways to get a background that we need. But Paint Bucket Tool's the easiest one. So now that we've got this prepared, as I've been squiggling around, there's various different things that will make your life easier. So the first thing, if you are drawing with a mouse, so you might have a graphics tablet, this might be fine, but it's also useful for graphics tablets if you have a bit of a shaky hand. So personally, I'm not great at drawing straight lines. You can see it's a little bit wonky, and if I'm trying to draw like a smooth circle, it doesn't quite go how I want it. So a good thing that Photoshop's added fairly recently is this smoothing option. So if we select the brush tool, then it will bring up all the options we can do. So by default, I usually set the hardness all the way up, so tick on this, and then put that hardness all the way up to 100%. Otherwise, it adds like a blurred, like sort of fade to the brush. And in some cases, that might be what you want, but typically, especially if you're doing like hard outlines or something, you'd want the hardness as 100%. You can change the size to whatever you want. Then going all the way through, smoothness, so this adds something quite strange. It's easier to show, but if I'm trying to trace over a line, maybe I've done some concept art on paper, and I've scanned it in and I want to trace over it to make a nice little graphic for a game I'm making. Typically I do it to 50, but depending on what you need, you might need to increase that number. But what it does, it kind of lags behind the mouse, but it smooths it out, it averages it out and makes it smooth. So if I just do a squiggle here, you can see it's following behind, but if I set that back to 10, the default number, if I do the same squiggle, you can see it sort of averages out and smooths it out. So if I'm trying to do a circle with this, so it's not perfect, obviously, but I tried to do it like this, kind of, well, I did that quite well, but the example is that it's not as wobbly, so you can see it through here. So smoothing is quite a good tool, especially if you've got a bit of a shaky hand. Another tool that's good, which is also hidden, is let's say you've you've got something from Google, but you want to take out a certain portion of it. So the fourth one down, you can see Object Selection tool here. If we hold left click on that, and then change to Magic Wand tool, so if I draw something here, so I've got, change that to black, I do this, and then I change the colour, fill that there, but then I do blue, and then I do that. But I want to take this blue out, so I could paint over it with the same colour, but maybe it's a complex picture and it won't work that way. Or maybe I want to take out this red and I just want the outline with the blue smile. So I can just click on a colour and then I can delete that, and now the red's gone. Something that might happen is if there's a kind of gradient to the colour, so let's add a full gradient just over here. Okay, so if we do this, then I colour drop that. So Magic Wand sort of selects a colour and selects like a portion around that. So this is the tolerance. So it's picked this colour in the middle, and it's saying these colours are similar to it, so I'll pick them as well. But maybe you want to select a wider range of colours. So if we, I think it's increase. So this has started to get a larger selection. So I'll show this with a smallish number. So it's starting to get a wider thing. But then if we reduce that, maybe it's selecting too many colours. We can then decrease the tolerance, and then it starts to select a little bit less each time. So these are some tools. So just very briefly, a couple of tools that might make your life a lot easier when you're developing some graphics with Photoshop.